Apologies for the voiceover. In this video, we're going to cover some basic testing once you've got the granular hydraulic proportional controller installed. So once everything is installed, we fire up the unit, top left hand corner lights up green. That means the unit is wirelessly connected to the hydraulic controller. The aux1 button at the bottom, long pressing that changes between modes. So we just long press that to get into manual mode. Manual mode is currently paused, so as soon as I short press it, manual mode is now unpaused. So now we can run this spreader like a manual spreader. So the up down arrows will up and down your conveyor speed, and the aux2 and aux3 arrows, which is spinner plus and spinner minus, will essentially increase and decrease your spinner speed. So if you are for whatever reason looking to run the sprayer or spreader in manual mode, then long press aux1 to go into manual mode, short press to pause and unpause, and that's pretty much it. Now just to look at some of the control settings, we're going to go into control parameters. Page 1, there's nothing relevant here apart from the spread widths. So if you go into spread widths, the system's basically got a configuration where anything less than 30% valve opening corresponds to, I believe, 10 feet of spread, and then 30 to 50% or 55% in this case is 15 feet of spread, and then 55 to 75% is 20 feet, and so on and so forth. So all these values can be changed. So you could make the 30 20, you could make it 35, etc., etc. So this is something where you're going to have to just use a tape measure and just establish some of these numbers. One thing to note is that the highest value has to be increased before any of the values before that can be brought up. So, for example, the value that's at 25 right now, this wouldn't go above 30 because the next one up is at 30. So just be wary of that. And the same logic applies to the percentages as well. So this is again a bit of hit and trial, but then based on this mapping, essentially the system is going to assume a spread width when you're applying material in manual mode. So I just hit aux1, and this is just the spread width. Now going into control parameters, there's a couple other settings that are probably worth noting. So first one would be on page 6, where we've got a minimum conveyor duty, i.e. this is the smallest number that we're going to open the or conveyor valve at, because hydraulic controllers or solenoids aren't very responsive, at least initially. So just by testing, we can actually see that most controllers wouldn't respond under 30%. So you can use that plus minus button. Just put your controller in manual mode, and you can use that plus minus button to actually increase or decrease your conveyor valve opening until the conveyor just starts to run. And then whatever that number is, set your minimum duty to that. 30 is usually where conveyors start running. And then of course 80 is our default maximum in this case, which means we will never open the hydraulic valve more than 80%, because these things are quite powerful and you don't want them running anywhere beyond what you're comfortable with. So the fact that a valve's able to run the chain of the conveyor at a certain speed doesn't mean you should be running it at that speed. So again, keep changing the duty using the plus minus button where it says conveyor duty, and wherever you're comfortable, note that number down and just use that as your max duty. We would typically recommend 30 and 80 is usually pretty good. The last thing is conveyor rate change. So this is how quickly we will open or close the valve. Say in this case for the spinner as well. So if you see that your system is laggy, i.e. it's taking a little bit longer to open or close, you can up this number. Again, based on our research and the equipment that we've looked at, these defaults kind of work. But if you ever need to adjust them, this is what you'd be adjusting. Other than that, there isn't much really that needs to be done as far as fine tuning the control goes. So I believe the next thing we're going to do here is to go into just pause the manual mode and now go back to auto mode, set your rate. So right now we've set our rate to 500 and we've set our spread width to 40, 50 now, which is 24 feet. So it's assuming 24 feet now. So we're trying to spread 24 feet wide at 500 pounds an acre, which is quite a high number. So let's see if it works. And for us to test this out, we're in auto mode. Auto mode has been enabled. So the unit's still not applying any material because there is no speed, because the truck's stationary. So what we're going to do next is we're going to hit the auto manual button and the system's going to manually just simulate 10 miles an hour. And then when that happens, it's going to start applying material. To look at all of this visually, there is this graph option. So I'm just going to give it some speed. And then the moment I give it speed, you see the red line goes up. That is our required flow. And the blue line is essentially our actual flow and as you can see it's trying to catch up to the desired flow, but it's not able to because 500 pounds an acre at 10 miles an hour is a little too much for this spreader. So it's always just hovering under, which means we are not able to do 500 pounds an acre at 25 feet spread width at 10 miles an hour. So what we've done now is I've just uh, I killed the manual the sim speed, so the speed goes back to zero, and slowly the system shuts down the valves, and your actual flow, the blue line, also comes back to zero. So just to be able to test things in a little more realistic scenario, what we're going to do is we're going to change our rates and spread widths of it. So I'm going to change my spread width to 30 or 20 now. In this case, it's about 10 feet. It's assuming you're doing 10 feet wide, so of course you need less material. And I've also lowered my application rate a bit. Now I test the same process. So I hit the auto manual button. Now the unit's assuming it's doing 10 miles an hour. The line goes up again, so that's my required flow. And the blue line kind of follows. So this is where you can see the valves are already automatically opened to the blue line and they're almost very close to the blue line now. Now I was at 400 pounds per acre before. I up my rate, so my required flow increases, and then as you can see the blue line kind of follows and your actual flow increases with it. So this is essentially ground speed control in action. The system's automatically adjusting your conveyor speed to meet your required flow based on your target application rate, your set width, and your speed essentially. I turn sim speed off, i.e. the system's now doing 0 miles an hour, and we're back to our home screen. So as you saw, we started at 400 and I slowly upped my rate to 900, and the system was kind of able to catch up accordingly. So really simple system. This video, hopefully, whoever is looking to just get started on this should let you kind of do some basic testing and at least get familiarized with the system a little bit.